The story of Sophie Cunningham has always been one of fire, fight, and fearless self-belief. But this latest chapter might be one of the most defining moments of her career. It didn't happen in the middle of a game-winning shot or during a clutch defensive stand. It happened with a microphone in front of her face, under the glare of studio lights, and in front of millions watching at home. What was supposed to be a standard post-game interview turned into a jaw-dropping moment. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. When a veteran sports reporter lobbed a question that stopped Sophie in her tracks. "Do you think," the reporter asked, "that your recent success is more about luck than skill?" For a split second, there was silence. You could feel the air in the room shift. This wasn't just a dig. This was a kind of question that carried an undertone, one that suggested her years of blood, sweat, and sacrifice could be reduced to a fortunate streak. The camera caught her reaction, a raised eyebrow, a small smirk, and the unmistakable look of someone deciding exactly how they were going to respond. And when Sophie finally spoke, she didn't raise her voice or lash out. She chose precision over volume, conviction over defensiveness. "Luck," she began, "doesn't get you through 5 a.m. workouts. Luck doesn't get you back on the court after an ACL tear. Luck doesn't hit a shot with 2 seconds left when your team needs it. This," she gestured to herself, to her jersey, to the career she'd built, "is hard work. This is hours. This is believing in yourself when other people tell you you can't. And if people want to call that luck, then maybe they've never worked hard enough to know the difference." The room went still. You could almost hear the collective exhale from fans watching live. And just like that, the moment wasn't about the reporter's question anymore. It was about Sophie's answer. This is who Sophie Cunningham has always been. From the days she was lighting up scoreboards at Rockbridge High School in Columbia, Missouri, to her collegiate dominance with the Missouri Tigers. She has thrived in situations where others doubted her. She didn't just play the game, she embodied it, with a fearlessness that made her impossible to ignore. In high school, she wasn't just a star, she was a hometown hero. Her name was already etched into Missouri basketball history books before she even graduated. The records she broke weren't accidents. They were the product of hours in the gym, even when nobody was watching. She led her team to state titles not just with her scoring, but with her leadership. And even then, people tried to box her in, to say she was just another talented local player who'd burn bright and fade away. They were wrong. When the time came for college, Sophie could have gone anywhere. Big-name programs across the country wanted her. But she chose Missouri, not because it was easy, but because it was home. She wanted to put her state on the map. She wanted to prove that you could stay local and still compete with the best. And she did. At Missouri, Sophie wasn't just good. She was a force. She played with a raw, emotional energy that made her a nightmare for opponents and a fan favorite. She would drive the lane without fear, talk back to defenders, and celebrate big plays with unapologetic passion. And she backed it all up. Game after game, season after season, she delivered. Even through injuries, even through criticism. By the time she declared for the WNBA draft in 2019, she had become one of the most polarizing and talked about players in women's college basketball. Being drafted 13th overall by the Phoenix Mercury should have been the validation she'd earned. But the WNBA isn't a place where reputations carry you. You have to prove yourself all over again. And Sophie knew it. She came into the league with no illusions. She wasn't going to be handed a starting spot or special treatment. She had to earn her minutes, and she had to do it in a locker room full of veterans who had already made their mark. So she did what she's always done. She worked. She improved her three-point shot, became a tougher defender, and embraced whatever role the team needed her to play. But make no mistake, Sophie Cunningham wasn't just trying to fit in. She was making her presence known. Every loose ball, every hustle play, every high-pressure shot, she attacked it with the same intensity she's had since high school. And over time, the league began to notice. That's why this reporter's question stung so much for fans. Because for anyone who's followed Sophie's career, the idea that she's lucky is laughable. There's nothing accidental about a woman who survived roster changes, injuries, and the constant scrutiny that comes with being a player people either love or love to hate. Her success is methodical. It's the result of refusing to fold under pressure, of showing up when others wouldn't, of knowing that every time she steps onto court, she has to justify her spot in a league with limited roster spaces and unlimited competition. And then there's Sophie's brand, the part of her career that exists beyond the box score. Unlike many players who keep their heads down off the court, Sophie has built a platform. She's not just an athlete. She's a personality. She's done commercials, signed endorsement deals, and even launched her own podcast, Show Me Something, which gives fans a candid look into her life and the sport she loves. She understands that in today's sports world, influence is as much about connection as it is about performance. And she's made herself relatable without ever watering down her competitive edge. That's why her post-interview moment went viral. It wasn't just that she defended herself. It was that she did it in a way that reflected her entire career, unapologetically, confidently, and with an unshakable sense of self-worth. The reaction was immediate. Social media lit up with fans praising her composure and confidence. Former players chimed in, calling her answer a masterclass in self-advocacy. Young athletes posted clips of the interview with captions like, "This is why we work," and "Sophie said what needed to be said." Even critics who questioned her style of play couldn't deny that she handled the moment with poise. Because here's the thing. In sports, as in life, there will always be people who try to reduce your success to luck, timing, or circumstance. What matters is how you respond. And Sophie's response turned what could have been a petty exchange into an empowering lesson. It's not hard to see why that moment resonated. This is a player who's been told, you can't more times than she can count. And every single time, she's turned it into fuel. She was told she wasn't athletic enough in high school. She was told she'd be overshadowed at Missouri. She was told she'd never crack a WNBA rotation. And now, she's being told her success is just luck. Her entire career has been about proving people wrong. And the best part? She's not bitter about it. She doesn't just clap back. She uses those moments to show younger athletes exactly what resilience looks like. So when you strip it all down, that interview wasn't just a viral clip. It was a snapshot of a career built in the exact qualities a question tried to dismiss. Skill, preparation, and relentless work ethic. Sophie Cunningham didn't just answer a reporter. She answered every doubt that's ever been thrown her way. What makes this moment even more explosive is the timing. Sophie Cunningham is not in the twilight of her career, coasting on past achievements. She's in her prime, playing some of the best basketball of her life. She's hitting clutch threes, diving for loose balls, sparking her team's energy with that signature fire, and drawing more media attention than ever. For someone to throw out a question suggesting her accomplishments are down to mere luck isn't just a cheap shot. It's a complete misreading of what she's done to get here. Fans who followed Sophie's journey know exactly how much she's sacrificed for this sport. They remember her playing through injuries in college when most athletes would have sat out. They remember her facing down hostile road crowds and feeding off the energy rather than shrinking from it. They remember the moments in the WNBA when she was overlooked for minutes or starting opportunities. But instead of sulking, she worked harder, stayed late after practice, and carved out her space through sheer effort. The irony is, those who try to diminish Sophie often end up making her case stronger. Every time someone doubts her, she delivers a performance that silences them. When people question her three-point consistency, she went out and lit up the arc for multiple games in a row. When critics said she couldn't be an emotional leader, she stepped into the role and galvanized her team during rough stretches. This is someone who thrives on being underestimated. She turns disrespect into motivation like few others in the league. That's why the look on her face during that interview was so telling. She wasn't shocked that someone questioned her. She's been questioned her whole life. But she also wasn't going to let the moment pass without making it crystal clear that her career isn't built on coincidence. And while Sophie's response was measured, make no mistake, her word was sharp enough to cut through every layer of insinuation in that question. She didn't just offend herself. She defended every athlete, especially women in sports, who've been told they're just lucky to be where they are. Another layer to this story is how Sophie's authenticity has made her both magnetic to fans and occasionally polarizing in the league. She's not someone who blends into background. Her energy is loud, unapologetic, and impossible to ignore. For some people, that's intimidating. For others, it's inspiring. But whether you love her or not, she's going to be herself. And that authenticity has become one of her most valuable assets, both on and off the court. That's also part why her fan base is so fiercely loyal. People see themselves in her story. Not necessarily the basketball part, but the part about being doubted, dismissed, or underestimated, and fighting your way to respect through sheer persistence. Her answer to that reporter didn't just speak to her own journey. It spoke to anyone who's ever had their success chalked up to luck instead of work. And let's be real. In the WNBA, where every roster spot is fiercely contested and every player is fighting for relevance in a crowded sports market, you don't survive on luck. You survive on skill, work ethic, and the ability to deliver when the lights are brightest. Sophie's been doing that for years, and the stats back her up. Her shooting percentages have improved season after season. She's become a defensive threat that opposing teams have to account for, and she's proven she can step up in high-pressure moments. That's not fortune, that's mastery. Her growth into a brand powerhouse is another piece of the puzzle. Sophie has leveraged her platform to expand beyond basketball, building a name in sports media, connecting with fans through podcasts and social channels, and aligning with brands that match her unapologetic style. This is not an athlete who's just along for the ride. She's driving the bus, deciding where it goes, and making sure her career has longevity both during and after her playing days. And the timing of this public moment with the reporter couldn't be better for her. In a league where visibility is currency, Sophie just gave herself and her message the kind of viral exposure that PR teams dream about. Clips of her response are circulating not just among WNBA fans, but in wider sports media, being replayed on talk shows, shared by other athletes, and dissected by commentators. This isn't just a post-game soundbite. It's a statement that's going to follow her for the rest of the season. There's also an undercurrent of gender dynamics in all of this that can't be ignored. Male athletes are rarely told their success is due to luck. When a male player goes on a hot streak, it's framed as a product of skill, preparation, and natural talent. When a woman does it, especially in a league still fighting for mainstream respect, there's often a subtle attempt to attribute it to circumstance rather than capability. Sophie's response hit harder, because it wasn't just about her. It was about challenging that entire mindset. Her statement was a reminder that every shot she takes is a result of thousands she's taken before. Every sprint down the court is built on years of conditioning, and every high-pressure play is executed because she's prepared herself mentally and physically to handle those moments. Within hours of the interview airing, teammates past and present began showing support. A few sent out cryptic tweets, a single fire emoji, a clip of her hitting a big three, with the words, "facts only." Others were more direct, applauding her for standing up for herself and for setting the record straight. Even players from rival teams chimed in, acknowledging that while they might not root for her on the court, they respected the hell out of her work ethic. This is what makes Sophie's story so compelling. She's a type of player you can hate playing against but still admire. She talks trash, she celebrates loudly, she wears her emotions on her sleeve, and she backs it all up. For the Indiana Fever, who've benefited greatly from Sophie's presence since she joined, moments like this matter. They're not just about defending one player's reputation. They're about setting a tone for the entire team. Sophie's willingness to push back against doubt sends a message to her teammates. We don't apologize for winning. We don't downplay our success. And we don't let anyone rewrite the narrative of how we got here. That's especially important in a league where perception often shapes opportunity. Media narratives can influence everything from endorsement deals to all-star selections. And if you allow the story be that your success is just luck, you risk being undervalued and overlooked. Sophie knows that, which is why she made sure to flip the script immediately. Moving forward, this moment is going to be one of those defining snapshots in Sophie Cunningham's career. People will look back and say, that was the day she drew a line in the sand. It's not just about defending herself. It's about setting a precedent. If you're going to challenge her legitimacy, be ready for her to respond with facts, receipts, and a healthy dose of competitive fire. And here's the truth. She's probably going to keep facing those kinds of questions. That's the reality for athletes who stand out. especially women who are unapologetically confident in their abilities. But now, everyone knows exactly how she'll handle it. Not with excuses, not with defensiveness, but with a calm, razor-sharp reminder that she's earned every inch of her success. If anything, the luck comment might have been the worst strategic move a critic could make right now. Sophie Cunningham is the type of player who takes that kind of jab personally and uses it as fuel. Don't be surprised if her next few games are some of her best of the season. It wouldn't be the first time she's answered criticism with performance. And when that happens, you can bet she won't let anyone call it coincidence. This is exactly what makes her one of the most exciting figures in the WNBA right now. She's not just playing basketball. She's shaping her own narrative, controlling her own story, and forcing people to respect the grind behind the glory. And whether you're a fan or a skeptic, what happened after that interview was almost as fascinating as the exchange itself. Overnight, social media turned into a war zone of hot takes, highlight reels, and think pieces. One clip in particular, Sophie pausing after the reporter's question, tilting her head, and giving that slow, knowing smile before answering, became the unofficial meme of the week. People caption it with lines like, "When your boss asks if you actually work," or "When they think you just woke up like this." But beyond the humor, there was a more serious undertone. Many fans, especially those who followed women's sports for years, saw the exchange as a symptom of a deeper problem. Female athletes often have to do more than win games. They have to constantly prove they deserve to be there. For Sophie, who's battled her way up through every level of competition, the implication that she was coasting on good fortune hit a nerve. Not because she doubted herself, but because she knew how many young girls were watching. And that's where Sophie's answer landed differently. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't hostile. It was instructive. She made it clear that luck didn't get her into the league, and luck doesn't keep her there. Hours of gym time, years of pushing through pain, a stubborn refusal to quit. Those are the real reasons. By saying it so plainly, she gave every kid in the stands a blueprint. Talent matters, but it's the grind that sustains you. Inside the Indiana Fever locker room, that interview became a rallying point. Teammates who've known Sophie for years said they weren't surprised at all. That's exactly who she is. She's vocal, she's fearless, and she's not afraid to address uncomfortable topics in public. For younger players on the roster, it was a live lesson in how to handle tough questions without losing composure or undermining your own brand. There's another element worth noting. Timing in sports media is everything. The Fever had been riding a wave of positive momentum, and Sophie's performance in the weeks leading up to the interview had been stellar. By the time that question dropped, she had a body of work to point to that made any suggestion of luck almost laughable. That gave her words even more weight. She wasn't just defending her reputation. She was defending results that were fresh in everyone's minds. What also made the moment so gripping is that it tapped into a much larger conversation about respect for WNBA players in general. Even now, the league's athletes are fighting for equitable coverage, fair pay, and the same baseline respect their male counterparts receive as a matter of course. Sophie's pushback wasn't just about herself. It was, in a way, a defense of the entire league. The other reality is that Sophie Cunningham has never been afraid to mix it up on the court. She's known for her physical style of play, her willingness to get under opponents' skin, and her refusal to back down from confrontation. That kind of personality tends to polarize people. You'll have fans who love her energy and opponents who see her as an agitator. So when she's challenged in an interview, people watch closely to see if she'll bring that same fire, and she usually does, but in a way that's calculated, not reckless. Critics of the reporter's question argued that it was lazy journalism, the kind of throwaway line designed to provoke rather than extract genuine insight. But in an odd twist, it might have done Sophie a favor. Instead of fading into the background of a crowded news cycle, she became the main headline. Within 24 hours, ESPN segments were discussing her comments, sports radio shows were debating whether she was underrated, and even casual fans who didn't follow the WNBA closely knew her name. This is a double-edged sword of professional sports. Sometimes a controversy you didn't ask for becomes a publicity you can use. Sophie didn't shy away from that. In the days that followed, she leaned into her public appearances, using every opportunity to reinforce her message about work ethic, resilience, and the importance of owning your narrative. Off the court, her branding game has always been strong, but after this moment, it reached another level. Merch lines popped up with phrases inspired by her response. Fans made signs referencing her quote and held them up at games. Even rival arenas saw increased chatter about her. Boos from opponents' fans, sure, but also an unspoken acknowledgement that she was someone worth reacting to. The Fever organization, for their part, seemed happy to stand behind her. Coaches praised her leadership. Teammates doubled down on their public support, and the team's social media accounts highlighted her best plays alongside clips from the interview. They knew a good narrative when they saw one, and they weren't going to waste it. What's particularly interesting is how this moment could shape Sophie's long-term influence in the league. She's already carved out a reputation as someone with personality, and in a league that's constantly fighting for eyeballs, personality matters almost as much as performance. Think about the greats who transcended their sport. They weren't just good, they were memorable. Sophie's willingness to meet controversy head-on gives her that same potential. And the thing is, she backs it up statistically. Whether it's her improving three-point percentage, her efficiency in clutch situations, or her ability to swing momentum with a single hustle play, the numbers show she's more than just a glue player. She's someone who can and does change the outcome of games. Another layer is the mentorship angle. Younger players entering the league are watching closely. For rookies who might be shy about speaking up or defending themselves in the media, Sophie's example is instructive. You can be firm without being disrespectful, direct without being unprofessional. That's a skill that extends beyond basketball and into life after sports. It also raises questions about the media's role in shaping public perception of athletes. By framing her success as luck, that reporter wasn't just minimizing her achievements. They were attempting to rewrite her story in real time. Sophie's quick response ensured that the narrative stayed in her hands. That's not just savvy. That's survival in the modern sports landscape. If you zoom out, this moment isn't isolated. It fits into a broader pattern of Sophie Cunningham turning obstacles into stepping stones. When she was overlooked in the draft, she worked her way into relevance. When she was labeled as too fiery or emotional, she channeled it into leadership energy. Now, when someone tries to discredit her success, she uses it as a megaphone to amplify her own message. And here's the part her critics may not realize. They're fueling the very thing they're trying to diminish. Every jab, every doubt, every offhand comment becomes another spark for a competitive fire. If history is any indicator, we're about to see Sophie go on a tear in the coming weeks, putting up numbers that make the luck argument look downright absurd. By the time the season ends, this could very well be one of those turning point moments people talk about in her career retrospectives. Not because of the drama itself, but because of what it revealed about her and what it taught others about how to handle these situations. In sports, moments of adversity are inevitable. What separates the good from the great is how you respond.